Neighbor illegally piped my hot spring into her yard, faked a contract, trashed my garden with chemicals, and now I'm preparing for court. I live on a large property with a small house in the front. There are many small hot springs in the semi-rural mountain area that I live in, with many used by homeowners in their backyard. Many are piped indoors, but some have hot tubs built around them. I happen to have an active one in my backyard. Picture an in-ground hot tub being fed in from the hot spring, near my left neighbor's house. I'll call her CN for crazy neighbor. A small stream runs through the far backyards of the neighborhood and it used for gardens and little nature areas that everyone on the street enjoys. I have my small fruit/pepper garden watered by this stream and take really good care of it. For some visualization, it has a good amount of water flowing down and everyone on the street uses it some way. My right neighbor, who's a really chill dude, who I'll call Jay, has small pools he made that are fed by the stream, and 2 neighbors down has a garden similar to mine. Now on to the actual story. When I bought the house, the previous owners were sued by CN, her claiming that the land was rightfully hers. I don't know the details of her argument, but it was thrown out, as far as I know. The previous owners warned me of CN and not to engage with her family. When I moved in, CN's kids, I'd say probably 8, 9, and 10, brought over cookies and welcomed me to the neighborhood. I thought that the previous owner was exaggerating as they seemed sweet. I invited CN and her family to a small barbecue and they accepted. The second that they got in the house, CN started to explain the rules of the neighborhood. I thought it was pretty normal, like to not play loud music after 9, keep your car in the driveway to keep the street uncluttered, etc. Common sense rules, until she got to some rules regarding the stream and the hot springs. She said that kids were allowed in all parts of the stream, in private backyards, and that everyone could use each other's hot springs. I have the only hot spring on the street, so I was surprised by that. I interrupted her and told her that I wasn't comfortable with those, and she scoffed, saying that all neighbors were fine with it. I told her that I still wasn't comfortable with it. She ignored me, continuing with some questionable rules. The rest of the night was fine, but I felt like I wouldn't want to do it again. I talked to some neighbors across the next couple days, who all told me to steer clear of CN and that her rules were BS. I went over to CN's house and told her that I had talked to the other neighbors and that I wasn't comfortable with anyone being in my backyard without my permission. She scoffed and said okay. I had a lunch with Jay and he told me who CN was, a serial suer with her lawyer on speed dial to get whatever she wants. CN had sued a small chain pizza place in town into debt for having peanut oil on her pizza when she was allergic to it. The pizza chain didn't even have peanut oil, and many people in the small community believed that she put it on, but still lost everything. I decided not to ever talk to her or her family. A week later, I got home from the grocery store to see CN's kids, I'll call them X for entitled kids, splashing in my hot spring tub. It's outside and usually has a lid on that 2 small kids would definitely not be able to take off as it is heavy and large. I tell them that they're not allowed in it and to leave my yard immediately, and they stand their ground, telling me that their mom, CN, told them that it was theirs and that they could use it. I told them that that's not true and to leave now. They finally do. Before you think that I'm an asshole for that, remember that pools/hot tubs are dangerous and I don't want to be liable. I headed back out to buy locks for my gates. When I got back, CN was now there, demanding why I kicked her kids out. She reminded me of the rules, but I told her to leave immediately and that my security camera was recording. She cursed at me for a minute or two, then left. I was bluffing as I did not have security cameras, but I did order them on Amazon that night. The next day was fine, replanting a lot of my plants from my apartment's balcony into the empty garden, the one that's watered by the stream. I noticed that CN kept looking over the fence. For the following weeks, CN complained about the trees in my yard, the color of the fence, what I'm doing with the stream, etc. Jay occasionally came over and told her to F off. 3 weeks ago, I left for a couple days for a friend's wedding. I kept getting security alerts saying that there was motion in my backyard, often her kids playing in my garden, trampling my dear shishito peppers. I texted Jay to tell them to get out. If you're wondering why not call the police, they wouldn't do anything as they're just some kids. I had a suspicion that CN was telling them to do these things, but I didn't have much evidence. On the drive back, I got a security alert that there was motion in my backyard. I didn't check as I was driving, but when I stopped for gas, I checked and saw CN instructing a plumbing team installing piping from my hot spring into their yard. I had it save all of the footage and I sent messages to Jay about it. Jay told them that they weren't allowed to be doing that, but since it wasn't his house, they didn't listen to him. I called the police and they went, but they had already installed the piping. The team was just leaving through the gate, with a broken lock on the ground, when the police showed up. They said that they had been hired by the homeowner. The police waited for me to get there while talking to the team of workers, and I told them that I was the homeowner and that I hadn't paid them to do it. They looked confused. I went with the police into the backyard and I started ripping the unsecured piping out with a crowbar. CN starts shrieking from her yard and puts her head over the fence and starts yelling that I'm destroying private property and that she would sue me. CN then says that she has a contract with the owner of the house to have my hot spring water. The police are now confused. She shows a contract that read that she was paying me $2 per month in exchange for the water. CN won't give it to me so I could look at it besides waving it around in the air. The police eventually leave and warn me not to destroy the piping. I ripped up the small pipe that connects to the source as she's telling me that she'll see me in court. I contacted my lawyer and she said that CN had no case as she didn't know my signature and it would be easy to prove it was forged. I still haven't been served by CN's lawyer, but know that I will soon. In the meantime, I've been sitting in the hot tub for long baths while talking to myself loudly about how much I love it. Petty, but it made me feel good hearing the growls from across the fence. This is the final thing that made me post here, my garden wilting and dying at an unnatural rate. I heard a commotion out in CN's yard and I peeked over and saw her slowly pouring a massive jug of chemicals into the communal stream, which goes down to mine. I don't know if it's herbicides, plant killer, or something like bleach. It doesn't smell like bleach so I don't think it's that, but it's rapidly killing my plants. I haven't eaten any of the fruit/peppers since as I'm worried I might get sick. I think that if I can get definitive proof of her doing it, I can maybe use it in court to prove how crazy she is. People swim in pools from the stream, so I warned Jay not to for the time being and told him to tell others. I know one neighbor removed her garden from the soil and moved it away from the stream just in case it got down to hers. I'm unsure of what I should do next. I don't think I live in a two-party consent state for video recording as it doesn't list it as one on the PDF I found. I might cross-post this into legal advice just in case. I do already have a lawyer, but it might be useful hearing free opinions from the internet. Update 1. The makeshift dam broke and water has been flowing down, but it's been slow. CN complained to a neighbor up the street that she's on speaking terms with about me being a major asshole for not letting her kids use my hot spring tub. She let it slip that she poured vinegar in the stream as justice. The neighbor was also shown the contract for the pipes and she said that she didn't even have it signed by me. She and her lawyer had signed it, but without any signature space for me. I thought that she forged my signature, but she didn't have any agreement, fraudulent or otherwise, on my side whatsoever. The neighbor similarly dislikes her, but their kids are friends, so she has to talk to CN. I sent all the info to a local environmental charity that has contacts within environmental protection agencies. They usually deal with lakes and dumping, so this was in what they deal with regularly. The police were outside CN's house a couple hours ago and took her to the station. CN is back at her house, now yelling over the fence profanities while I'm having a coffee. I don't know if they arrested her and she paid bail or that she just was taken in for questioning or something. I know her brother-in-law works at the police station, but I wouldn't doubt that her family members have a strained relationship with her. I hope that she's stuck with a giant fine and her jail time. CN's lawyer still hasn't served me regarding the pipes, and my lawyer is saying that CN has no case whatsoever. Update 2. While the government does its thing against my neighbor, I would like to do the most legal annoying thing to do. Currently, I'm thinking about removing the piping and separating the original cost. I think I will send every piece individually through a local copy/print/delivery shop. I know the owner and I think he would think it would be hilarious and agree to it. The plan, please help with it. 1. Remove the piping from the ground and separate every piece into small plastic baggies and boxes. 2. Bring to copy/print/delivery shop. 3. Plan deliveries of each package every period of time over a long time that require signig. Also, I called the owner of the copy/print/delivery shop and he agreed to what I said in the previous post. I removed all of the pipes from my yard and put them into bags. I didn't have as much plastic bags and boxes as I thought, so I'm paying extra for the owner of the copy shop to supply them. He just delivered the first one to CN. I watched from the street, and CN's husband answered. He shouted for CN and she came up. I didn't hear any of the discussion, but she signed delivery sheet, took the package, of a single small corner pipe piece, and stormed into her house. She went up to the second-story window and proceeded to glare at me since, still glaring as I sit on my couch while writing this. Working from home will be so nice for watching this. Update 3. Since my last post, there has been one more pipe delivery to CN and she is pissed. She stormed over to my house, after signing the delivery which I thought she would stop doing, and banged on the door. I started recording my front door and opened the door. I'm not dumb enough to let her in. CN starts shrieking about how I'm awful and that I had to keep the pipes installed as it was her property and that we had a contract. When I told her that the contract wasn't legal at all, she starts screaming at me. I stepped inside for a second and called the police with the door closed. CN continues banging on my door. I don't open until a police car comes down the street. I tell the police that I don't want her ever to be on my property and that she is trespassing. They relay that to her, and she takes up a hurt old lady act. For reference, she is in her 40s. CN tells them that my hot tub burned her youngest child and that I was luring kids in. I showed the police the camera footage and they asked her to come to the station with them. I'm assuming that she made some fake report, but I guess that will be another charge of lying to a police officer. I think that the officer, not CN's brother-in-law, believed me and saw that she was in fact a CN. I saw CN get back into her house and once again went up to the top window, staring. I closed the blinds. I thought she would stop. Honestly, it doesn't bother me, but to my surprise, she crosses the street to the side of the hill, Teresa slope on the other side of the street from the houses. There's more houses up the slope, and stairs through my front window. I don't have blinds for that one and was about to head to a different room when I see her trip backwards, Teresa small ditch for runoff, and land on her butt. CN lets out an ungodly shriek. It wasn't that loud, but I'd like to say it was, as she storms back into her house. I feel at this point, with all of the stuff from my lawyer, from Reddit, and neighbors saying that I am completely in the right and that CN is insane has made this more into entertainment than a scary situation for me. I have multiple locks arriving in a couple days and a new security camera for the side yard. If you have any legal suggestions, please tell me. If there's anything I should be aware of, please tell me. Update 4. I've been told that messing with CN is probably not going to help out legally, especially with a restraining order, so I just told the copy shop owner just to deliver it all at once. I don't know if that's happened yet, but I'm fine not being looking when it happens. I will file a restraining order today. I don't know how it works, but I hope I can complete it today. No new news from CN except Jay saying that she looked really mad. I know this isn't a big update, but it's an update on the situation. This happened last night and I was too tired to update after it. CN's husband, I'll call him NH for neighbor husband, knocked on my door last night, alone. CN wasn't there, so I answered it. He then tells me that CN is going through some things right now and some other stuff. He then asks me if I could let sleeping dogs lie. She did some stuff wrong, but she's a really great person. I told him that I would consider it. I'm not, but I didn't want to be in that conversation. I honestly thought that he would apologize about it, but making excuses like that is so pathetic. According to many of my neighbors, CN's been like this for years. I think he's trying to cover themselves from the bomb they just planted. That's all. New updates probably coming soon. I was typing this out earlier, but it didn't save as a draft, so I will paraphrase it instead of writing it all out like earlier. I went out to get my mail and I noticed CN rush out of her house onto her porch to watch me. I take the mail and head inside. Through the endless sea of junk mail, there was a wedding invitation. Nobody I know remotely nearby is getting married and I didn't recognize the names or the faces. On the back was a handwritten letter thanking me for volunteering my house for the bachelorette party and inviting me to wedding at a local venue. 1. Definitely did not invite anyone to use my property for a party. 2. My backyard isn't the biggest for a party. 3. I don't know who these people are. I took a picture of the front and the back and then went and made a copy of the invitation and cut it to the right size. I then took the copy and walked in front of CN's house, in the street. She is looking from the door. I then light the copy on fire, safely. She runs out and starts yelling at me. I am not entirely listening as I had an earbud in my left ear listening to a podcast. I listened to podcasts while doing my routines and hadn't bothered to take it out, and at one point, I heard the groom's name. Clearly she was behind it. I knew before, this just solidified the fact. I called her husband and told him that I was not hosting the bachelorette party and to leave me alone. He asks which one. I told him the names of the bride and groom. He is audibly surprised. He then tells me that the groom is CN's son from a teenage pregnancy, not with him. He then said that he would talk to CN about it, calling it an accident. I find the name of the dad of the groom and call him. He sounded super genuinely grateful when I told him who I was. I asked him about CN and he said that she had left the baby with him, and when he had sued for child support, the judge said that it was his poor choices that led to the baby and he was responsible for it, without child support. I told him the situation, and he sounded defeated. Apparently, the groom had been quick to forgive his absent mother, CN, and had invited her against the dad's wishes. He said that he would tell the groom and the bride about the situation. I then had a thought that would be the absolute perfect revenge. I offered to host the party for free with 2 rules. 1. They don't damage anything and clean everything up. 2. CN is blocked at the door of the wedding despite her invitation. 3. My invite to the wedding still stands. He said he would discuss it with the bride and groom. Even if he says no, it's worth a try. I just realized I typed it all up in detail despite what I said at the beginning. I will probably get the news in the next couple days. Update 5. I will call the groom's dad GD and groom and bride G and B. I was looking over some comments just before posting this and realized I don't want to be screwed over, so I am staying back. Also, GD gave me a call extremely late last night and told me that G wanted to meet his mom, CN, at the wedding. B was supportive, thinking it would be an extremely wholesome wedding. GD said that he would try to find another location for the party, but that it would be hard this late as B had a large bridesmaids group. GD is going to help CN with preparing for the wedding at his son's request, even though he thinks it might be a disaster. My plants that are near the stream look scorched as if they were in a fire. I'm talking about the plants that are next and around the stream, not in my garden. I think the next steps are through legal means and not through petty actions. I will keep you all updated. CN had been trying to gain access to the hot spring for as long as she's known of it. She had tried lawsuits, land disputes, and other legal and legally dubious means to get it. When she heard of her son becoming married, she thought that she could have a good attempt at gaining access to the hot spring. CN had initially offered to use her house for a price for the bridesmaids party, but since it didn't have anything good for a party, B had declined. She couldn't find another place though, but still didn't want CN's house. CN had then had the bright idea to tell the B and G that she had had a natural, healing, and amazing hot spring in her yard, and B said yes. This is when CN tries the whole piping the hot spring to her yard. She obviously doesn't get far into that plan. After I dismantle all the piping, she volunteers my house and backyard for the party. I think that the stream pollution was lashing out because she was mad before she volunteered my house. No updates besides what I've pieced together from assorted sources. GD called me about 10 minutes ago. I was going to post the update right away, but I was reading some of the comments. This is what he said, and asked if my offer about hosting the bridesmaids party was still standing. This is heavily paraphrased to be readable, but all the main points and events are there. GD met up with CN to talk to her about the wedding, mostly setting boundaries. He went to her house, with his phone recording just in case anything happened, knowing the history of CN. GD is talking to CN very formally, as much straight facts as possible when he glances through a cracked open door into her bedroom. I don't remember the word he used to describe it, it was a very good way to say it, but kind of out of the corner of your vision when you're avoiding eye contact. GD sees multiple white dresses laying on CN's bed. They are fancy dresses. Not quite wedding dresses, but definitely close. GD can't stop staring at it. He then asks CN about what she's wearing to the wedding, and CN says that she has a couple dresses picked out. He connects the dots and subtly leaves the conversation, calls B and G and tells them what he saw. He then gives G some of CN's history. B then asks if they can do the house with the hot spring then. GD tells me that he knows that I don't like CN and that I wouldn't be at the wedding, but that the rest of the deal would stand. I told him sure, but not to let CN know about it, just letting herself think that I got pushed around by him into hosting. I know that the agencies I contacted about her pouring vinegar into the creek have been investigating, so even though it likely wouldn't, I hope it all falls out on the day of the wedding. Update 6. Okay, I've been told to skinny dip in the hot spring. I'm not doing that. I am not socially okay enough for my neighbor to see, even if it's to get revenge. I do know some people who are. This happened yesterday around 1, just for reference. I tell some friends who are comfortable in their own bodies that they could hang out in the hot tub and I'm not going to be there, so they could do whatever. I more asked them to do it after I gave a little bit of backstory of the neighbor. They happily agreed and they came around 1. I left for a nice long lunch when they came and I told them to call me if anything happened. I also turned off the back security camera just to not be weird. Not 30 minutes later do the cops call me asking if I was okay with the people in my backyard. CN had called the cops for a trespassing, hypocrite, and they had arrived and talked to my friends. They had my number and they called me. I told them that I invited them over and the cops left. I didn't get a call this time, but the police were called again for my friends exposing themselves to children. The police knew that they were in a private backyard, but still came and pretty much left almost immediately after. It was the same officers, I think. My neighbor 2 houses down just came up to me and asked if I would allow the stream to be changed in my yard. Jay already said yes. There's a landscaping company that's going to be installing limestone along the creek for acid neutralization or something like that. My neighbor 2 houses down does have a garden similar to mine and I guess that's why. Not a big update. I said yes. I hope this can prevent future acid attacks. Not a big update. I said yes. I hope this can prevent future acid attacks. Update 7. I haven't updated in a while even though some stuff has happened just so I could save it for this giant update. I am so shocked by what happened and I guess I should have listened to some advice about being safe. Also, I phrased the update about the card wrong as the bridesmaids party was last night and the wedding is today. The ceremony just finished just a couple minutes ago and I got the news of what happened by a mutual friend who went to the wedding. I didn't know he was a mutual friend or going to the wedding. I told him about the situation a while ago and he decided to let me know. Friday, CN kept looking over the fence. I would have turned on sprinklers, but I don't have any because I don't really have grass in my backyard. Later in the day, a police car pulled into CN's driveway and a bit after, it left. CN's revenge of staring at me continued a lot more after that. I don't understand why she wastes her time doing it. It doesn't make me feel uncomfortable. Saturday, some people knocked on my door midday asking if I could let them into the backyard to set up for the bridal party. I called GD and he said it was the right people, just to be safe. They set up some surprisingly expensive and nice decorations and furniture in the yard, not in a destructive way. People come in and out while setting up in the backyard. Looks amazing. CN continuously peered over the fence for a good amount of time, but I didn't care. Around 6, B and all the bridesmaids, I'll do M for bridesmaids, also about 20 bridesmaids there. I stayed inside mostly, but they occasionally asked me to come out and they drunkenly thanked me. I think the M's were very wealthy as I received a little over $3,000 in tips from them as I occasionally brought out a carton of ice cream. Well worth it I think. More to the events of the party. CN had a campfire in her backyard around 9, but there wasn't really any wind, so the smoke just stayed in her yard. I think she tried to smoke us out, but maybe she was just having a little fire, I doubt it though. She then gets her hose to put out the fire and accidentally sprays water over the fence. Eventually, once the party winds down and they're packing up, B hands a card signed by all of them, thanking me for hosting with additional tips inside, about $2,000. I was honestly stunned how nice they were. Around 11, a very drunk CN bangs on my front door as I'm about to go to sleep. I don't answer, but have the video on the doorbell camera. She leaves after a bit and I go to bed. This morning, this is a second-hand account, so I won't have all the details. CN comes to the wedding in her very white dress and demands to be let in, but the security denies her. She tries to push the security, but he isn't fazed. People were watching, but my friend who was there had to go do something. I didn't ask what. When he gets back, CN isn't there. What's happening on my side? This is my account that is right after, but before I got the news about what happened. CN bangs on my door and tries the knob. Since I was getting groceries a bit before, I had accidentally left it unlocked. She comes into my house. I call the cops as soon as I see her open my door. I run upstairs while I give the info to the cops. CN screams at me and eventually slaps me in the face. I'm screaming at her to leave and she tries to slap me again. I grab her wrist and she screams. I basically drag her out the front door right as the police arrive. She is put in the back of the cop car and the police interview me. I tell them and they leave, then I get the news. CN is not back. I honestly won't argue with people about if this is true or not, as what happened this morning doesn't feel real even though I just lived through it. Update 8. Honestly, after everything that's happened, I haven't slept well. Here I am, drinking black coffee on my porch, wondering if this mountain air is ever going to do what blogs promised and heal my soul. Instead, it sometimes feels like living next to a live-action episode of Judge Judy, except Judge Judy would have put an end to this mess in season 2. So, here's the part where you probably think I'm making this up, but, as always, I have the receipts. If nothing else, CN is aggressively consistent. Let's start with the day after the wedding fiasco. CN didn't come back that night. The police actually left a cruiser parked down the street for a few hours, which I later learned is because she had both an outstanding citation for trespassing and a fresh charge for assault, the slap, which I now realize I should have ducked, but hey, hindsight. Her husband, NH, came by to apologize, genuinely apologetic this time, and looking utterly run down. He handed me a bag full of what he described as important documents CN wanted me to give back to you. Sure as daylight, it was the infamous contracts, all unsigned by me, plus copies she'd made of my property survey, with her post-it notes in the margins, my view. Kids splash zone. I had to laugh, honestly. I handed him a bottle of Tylenol and told him to keep it. But CN's absence didn't last. About mid-afternoon, she came raging home in her battered sedan, pulling into the driveway like Lewis Hamilton with a grudge. I know because the security app kindly pinged me. I kept my doors locked. This time, instead of coming to my door, she nailed a note to my mailbox with literal finishing nails: cease and desist all actions against me and my family. Your surveillance is harassment. Return water rights or else. I can't make this up. My mailbox looks like it survived a home improvement challenge. By now, the stream in the back is being watched by the county environmental folks. They roped off the creek with those yellow do not cross tapes and spent an afternoon taking samples. Jay, who's now almost like a weird water-obsessed Batman in all this, came over and brought me a creek water test kit and a six-pack, and told me he'd heard that CN had tried to claim to the county that I was the one who'd poured industrial pollutants into the water, not her. The fact that she made the report while the county investigator was literally standing in my backyard is just chef's kiss, CN. But here's where the craziness dial really turned up. 2 days ago, mid-morning, sun shining, birds chirping, 5 SUVs rolled up on the dead-end street, county officials, with badges, 2 cops, and 3 people in suits. I politely did not spit out my coffee. They're from the County Environmental Agency, and the Water Board, and, plot twist, the state. Turns out, after CN's vinegar trick, and likely as a response to all those phone calls and emails from myself and neighbors, our little stream caught the attention of the state water authorities. Long story short, our community's water rights are ancient and enforced by state law, and tampering with the stream crosses over into criminal territory. Everyone who uses the water was lined up for interviews in their driveways. Jay being Jay wheeled out a lawn chair and cracked open a beer at 10 a.m. They tested everyone's garden. When they got to CN's yard, she came out with her usual "I'm the victim" effect, but the lead investigator, the kind of woman who looks like she's bulldozed through liars for 40 years, just quietly raised an eyebrow and started taking soil and water samples right in front of her. CN got loud. The lead investigator just turned around and asked CN point blank if she'd poured any chemicals into the water. CN claimed that someone had to clean it up after all the filthy people downstream. You could feel every neighbor internally facepalming. About 3 hours into this, 2 more county trucks arrived, the only time I've seen NH look genuinely nervous. I overheard the officials explaining that because vinegar, and, apparently, the other things she'd poured previously, which the tests were now revealing, can legally count as pollution, CN was in serious, multi-agency trouble. The fines discussed were not small, but, plot twist, the water board also told me privately that I could, if I wished, apply for an easement restriction on my property boundary due to persistent trespass and sabotage, which would basically let me fence and sign my hot spring area as critical resource, private access only. The water is considered a resource, but the spring itself is my property. They actually recommended it after I played them the doorbell cam video of CN's most recent home invasion. The guy filling out the paperwork literally said, "I've never seen someone try so hard for a hot tub." Meanwhile, the party fallout is ongoing. CN, after being blocked from the wedding and arrested, has apparently become the cautionary tale among the other neighbors. Where once she glared over fences, now she storms inside and slams doors at any backyard laughter. Various people from the bridal party, and thank you, internet true crime subreddits, for teaching me to be suspicious, Left. Anonymous glowing Yelp reviews of my mountain hot spring event venue service. It got so many fake bookings in the first 12 hours that I had to put a disclaimer on the neighborhood Facebook page, which made literally everyone in the area aware of my war with CN. On the plus side, Jay's kids started calling my garden the Hero Peppers. As for the legal side, my lawyer is genuinely excited. She emailed that with the state and county getting involved, my restraining order, which I did finally file, will get a boost. CN's husband, on the other hand, has been spotted mowing his own lawn for the first time in years, and word from Jay is he's privately consulting with a local divorce attorney. I wish him only luck and Tylenol. I have hired, after all this, an actual fencing company, and next week, a team of extremely solid folks is putting up an 8-foot privacy fence around the entire backyard, reinforced by additional wrought iron panels courtesy of the county's easement grant. Jay volunteered to paint private property, no entry, smile for the cameras. On both sides in fluorescent orange, which I think is tacky but also hilarious. The official critical resource sign will be mounted directly above the hot spring. Final note, for now, yesterday, a woman from the environmental agency stopped by with a printout. The test results showed unsafe levels of multiple acids and detergents in the stream downstream from CN's house, exactly matching the timeline, and only on that block. They're moving forward with fines and possibly misdemeanor charges. She gave me her card and said, "If you have further trouble, let us know. We like to keep our mountains safe from renegade vinegar bandits." I have never laughed so hard. I'm framing the card.